Live NFL trivia every Tuesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge and have a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. For many players, the Super Bowl is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You'll do anything and everything to play in the big game. Just last year, we saw a few players on the Chiefs, including Mecole Hardman, play with a problem with his elbow, and Bashaud Breeland playing with a strained calf and a sprained ankle. Broncos running back Terrell Davis was named the MVP of Super Bowl 32, and he played that game with severe migraines. And over a quarter century ago, at Super Bowl 30, Steelers defensive back Rod Woodson tore his ACL on the first week of the season, and somehow was able to play in the game, recovering in just under 5 months. But as impressive as those athletic feats were, I'm not sure anything can compare to what happened at Super Bowl 9. Imagine being in a hospital bed less than 24 hours before the game, feeling ungodly levels of sick, and then somehow being able to play in the Super Bowl. Well, that's exactly what Steelers defensive end Dwight White did. He played the entire Super Bowl while battling pneumonia, and this is the story behind his heroic efforts. First, we need some context leading up to the game. By this point in the 1970s, the Pittsburgh Steelers were no longer the laughingstock of the league. After close to 40 years in the cellar, Chuck Noll had made this Pittsburgh team a proven winner. There were many reasons why this happened, but perhaps the most critical was their defense, which ranked second in the league in 1972 and 1974. You had tons of great players and future Hall of Famers on this defense, from the likes of Joe Green, Jack Ham, L.C. Greenwood, and Jack Lambert. But an instrumental part of that defense as well was Dwight White. White had not missed a start in his entire career. Even in 1971, despite being a rookie, he started all 14 games. In 1972 and 73, he made it to the Pro Bowl, and during that 1972 season, set a then-franchise record when he had 5 consecutive games with a sack. And in 1974, not only was he still a critical starter on the Steelers, but he helped guide Pittsburgh to their first Super Bowl in franchise history. Much like there is today, there was a 2-week break in between the conference championship and the Super Bowl. Bud Grant did not like this at all, saying that it doesn't take 2 weeks to prepare for a game. But this break turned out to be critical for Pittsburgh and White. On Sunday, January 5th, after the team landed in New Orleans and ate dinner at a seafood restaurant in the French Quarter, White was admitted to Baptist Hospital. The initial diagnosis was stomach cramps and back spasms. Chuck Noll seemed optimistic that White would be good though, saying that he would be ready by game time and that he was just a little bit under the weather. A little bit under the weather was definitely not how White was feeling. He was originally supposed to be released from the hospital on Monday, but that got changed to Tuesday. Then it got pushed to Wednesday. What White had was a viral infection, which we would later learn would be pneumonia. Still, Noll was confident that White was going to get the start, even though the Steelers kept him in the hospital as long as possible so he could get as much treatment as necessary. At that point, optimism was starting to wane amongst lots of people, who thought that Steve Furness was going to get the start on the defensive line instead of the hospitalized White. But after 4 nights in the hospital, White finally returned to the Steelers. He had slept for 3 straight days. He didn't eat any meals until Wednesday. From the time that he arrived in the hospital to his release on Thursday, he had lost 10 pounds. He was nowhere close to his playing weight and was still wearing a hospital band. After White's release, Noll sounded way less optimistic, saying that he was told some misinformation and that this virus was worse than he previously realized, and that even though White might be able to start, he didn't know how long he'd be able to play. Somehow, it got worse, because later in the night, the virus worsened. White had to be readmitted to the hospital. He lost another 8 pounds, meaning that in the span of a week, he had lost 18 pounds. White's status on the injury report was changed to doubtful. 2 days before the game, White was still in the hospital, and Noll was informed that there was no way that White could possibly play. Even on Saturday morning, 24 hours before game time, White was still there. But somehow, White was able to recover. He came out of the hospital, participated in pregame warmups the next day, and the doctors decided that, somehow, White was able to play in this game. despite being 18 pounds lighter and despite battling with a pneumonia. As L.C. Greenwood said, "I was never worried about Dwight. I knew if he could walk, he'd play. Heck, as long as he was breathing, I knew he'd play." Against all odds, White was playing. But how did he perform? Well, he played out of his mind, especially in the first half. The Vikings were kept off the scoreboard in that half, and White was probably the biggest reason why. On Minnesota's opening drive, White had a big tackle on second down, which set up a 3rd and long situation. To end the first quarter, he stuffed Dave Osborne for no gain. Later in the half, he had a tackle on Osborne that went for a loss of 1. And of course, while he didn't have to do a whole lot on the play, he was the man credited with the safety of Fran Tarkenton in the end zone following an aborted snap. These were the first points that Pittsburgh ever scored in a Super Bowl in franchise history. Pittsburgh's offense didn't get going until the second half of this game. Their amazing defense had to keep them in it during the first half, and White was the standout in that department. Eventually, the Steelers won the game 16-6, with White playing most of the game. It was the first title that the Steelers ever won in franchise history, even predating the Super Bowl era. For the first time ever, Pittsburgh was atop the Pro Football Mountain. And after the game, a lot of people talked about Franco Harris, and rightfully so. He had 158 rushing yards and a touchdown, and was a fairly worthy candidate for MVP. But Dwight White's heroics did not go unnoticed.
Today, I got out of the hospital on yesterday, and I just couldn't miss it. This was too big.
Well, you don't look sick. I'll tell you.
I feel sick. I'm pretty sick.
White said afterwards, "I haven't eaten much all week, and I felt awkward and light and very weak. I was tired at the half, and now I guess you could say I'm tireder. But in a way, I've never felt better. It would have been hard to swallow not being able to play today, but the decision was out of my hands." Even defensive line coach George Perlis was stunned with how well White played, saying that he told White to just pace himself, and that White's performance gave the team an emotional lift. As Perlis said, "You can move mountains with emotion, and that is really what White did. He didn't have much strength, but he was so high emotionally that no one was going to stop him. That was probably the best game he played all season." What did White do after the game? Well, he went right back to the hospital and stayed there for a week. In a 2-week stretch, White spent roughly 90% of his time in the hospital battling pneumonia. The other 10% of his time was preparing for the Super Bowl and balling out. As White later said, "I think God takes care of fools and little babies." As a side note, this is not the first time I made a video about Dwight White, as if you want to see a video on something that he did later on in his Steeler career involving Kermit the Frog of all things, then click the card in the upper right corner. And if you want to learn more about Super Bowl IX and how the Steelers came to life in the second half after struggling heavily on offense in the first half, then click the card in the upper right corner. Dwight White's performance is something that I'm not sure we're ever going to see again. Just because I'm not sure any doctors would ever allow for a guy battling pneumonia to play. White could have lost his life if things went wrong. Instead, he became a Super Bowl champion. Be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JarryGator9 and subscribe to 60-Second NFL History on YouTube. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.